Hi, welcome. Let's talk about writing, how to write and publish a book. And today we have an amazing guest, Suzanne. And I love when we have a guest on our second meeting of the month. It's actually on the third Tuesday of the month. So I love to have guests. I love to learn more about specifically about books and publishing, of course, because that's why we are here together. So today, Susan, I just will let introduce yourself and start sharing with us all the good nuggets.
Oh, I would love to. Susan Gabriel, thank you for the introduction. My company's name is Soul Sunshine, and that is SON, and that's for Jesus, the Son of God. That's how we have named our company. Is
Oh,
we want to have Jesus's name is in it, so we're
oh,
Soul
this is
Sunshine.
so good. I didn't know that. So first of all, thank you for that because it's so amazing. So wow.
Yeah, yeah. We are a Christian publishing company. That doesn't mean we only publish Christian books. That just means we only publish books that are wholesome, high quality, books like that. We don't want to publish anything that's anti-Christian or that is not going to be, of benefit, because we don't want to waste the paper on something like that. we just
Okay.
we just want to publish, books that are going to um, be helpful to people.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for the clarification. It's super important and interesting because for me as an author, I'm writing all kind of different books, and I was just wondering about my book. You Are Loud. It's just so interesting for me what you just said. But you know what? We can keep that for a personal conversation. I'm publishing my children book with you now. I'm super excited, and I think yes, the children book is amazing. And so, what do you want to share with us today? A specific
Okay.
topic.
Well, one of the things that I like to share with authors, especially if they've never been published before, there are a lot of things that you don't know. Just say, because I know, because I didn't know them. I have had my publishing company for about 4 years, and I have learned so much. I first started it just really to publish my own memoir, but I went on to publish my book 3 times because I was, really not happy with how it was turning out. So I I would go back and published it again, and but through that process, I learned so much. And I tried everything. I tried all of the different formats. There are several formats you can consider for your book. Paperback, of course, which is the most familiar. Ebook, which is like the Kindle book. Hardcover is another option. Audiobook is something you should consider. I also published my book in large print.
Oh wow.
There's also something else known as low content, and that would be something like a journal. Let's say it was just a journal of lines with
What?
prompts, journal prompts.
What? Oh
So,
wow!
you know,
But I want to learn. Okay, so as an first, oh my goodness, I don't know how to start, Susan. So where I start. So for I published a memoir,
mhm,
and you publish a memoir, so it's amazing. This is so good to publish a memoir,
uh-huh.
and I think it's really interesting because I actually published my book 3 times too. So the first time I publish, and then I give that to a friend to help me get better. So we publish again, and now I restart everything and republish in May. And we learn so much stuff in that process, and this is so amazing. But I think for me, it was more of writing more books. I I wrote so many books just from learning from that all that journey. So it's
Uh-huh.
really you can learn so much.
Yeah,
Um, I know about paper book and ebook and audiobook. I didn't know a large print. This is so interesting. Large print. How do you choose to do a large print? Why
yeah.
large print?
A large print is geared towards people who have some kind of visual impairment.
Okay.
And sometimes elderly people have more trouble seeing the fine print. So if you print a book in a size maybe 16 point font, it's easier for them to read.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so I published mine in a 16 point font and hardcover, just a little larger format. Instead of 6 by 9, which is a standard paperback size, I made it 7 by 10. So it's a little larger.
Okay.
Print
Okay.
is larger,
Oh
easier to
wow.
hold on to. It's just a good book. I guess I thought of it. It was kind of a tribute to my mother because she, towards the end of her life, always had large print magazines around and books and things like that because she still loved to read, but she had trouble reading because of the small print. So, I feel for people who want to read, but
Yeah.
the small print is just too much for them to be able to struggle with.
I understand. I have that problem sometimes. And since it's in English, as it's not my first language, so yeah, I totally understand that. Even though
Yeah.
I can see, but because of the language and everything, I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, it's really helpful. Okay, so now the last one before I let you move on to more interesting and amazing stuff. I can wait. But one last question: what was the last one? A journal or what?
Yeah, they call it low content
Okay.
books. A low content books means there's not a lot of, well, not a lot of content. In other words, it's not like a book that you would just sit down and read. It would be, let's say, a journal. Let's say there would might be on the first page a journal prompt like describe your best day ever,
Oh wow!
and then there would be room for you to write that. So it
But
would
it's
be like a journal with a lot, mostly blank pages. That's why they call it low content.
I
And
have
it
so many
seems,
like
yeah,
that.
it seems kind of funny to think of publishing a book like that on Amazon, but a lot of people do. There are a lot of low content books out there.
Oh my goodness, we need to talk even more now. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much. Oh wow. So when we are done, we finish writing the book.
Mhm.
Everything is ready. We are going through editing. We did few episodes with a lot of editor, and we can do more in the future. And I think I always say to my client, like, please, 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 you need to go to an editor. But okay, so we ready. So what now?
Okay. Well, I've got a list here, and I'll tell you what my list is. Um, it's when you have finished these things, then you're ready to publish. Okay, you finished writing and editing your first draft, and you gave the draft to some people to read, and you incorporated their comments. Then you edit your manuscript again. And here's something that a lot of people don't think about. Can you thoroughly describe your ideal reader? And I mean, right down to the details. What kind of clothes do they wear? How old are they? Do they have children? Just and really pinpoint it down to a very specific ideal reader that would enjoy your book. And that, in fact, is something you probably should have been thinking about all along as you're writing your book. It's really nice to have in your mind the audience so that you're always writing to your audience. Um,
So I have something to say about that. So it's
yeah.
really, really interesting. And I think I don't know who are my readers. I really don't know. And this
Uh-huh.
is so interesting because when I teach my writing class, I ask my the writer to don't think about anything, disconnect from everything you can disconnect from,
Uh-huh.
everything. So we are not talking about I think I bring that, but not that soon, like way by the end of the process. Like now I
Yeah.
have a lady, now we start to talk about that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
i
you can
i
begin
don't
to
know,
treat.
I don't know my own readers, so
Yeah.
oopsie.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting when you do find out your readers, who they are. And a lot of times you only find out when you start reading your reviews, and they sometimes will reveal some about themselves when they write the review, and they'll say, like, I have children too, and this same thing happened to me, and and they may go into some detail on their own life, so you already can begin to pick up on the kind of people. And they're if it's a memoir, your ideal reader may very well be very much like you. So
Yeah,
that makes it easier for a lot of people when they're writing memoirs.
yeah,
Yeah. So another thing that's really nice to have done is to read other books in the same genre as yours, because it will give you a feel, first of all, for competition, of course, but it also gives you a feel for what readers expect. Because when they pick up a book and they look at the cover should tell them what the genre is. In other words, is this a memoir? Is this an action novel? Is this a nonfiction business book? I mean, you should know which kind of book it is just looking at the cover. But if you've read some of the books, then you're going to also see there are certain elements to each type of book that are very common to that particular genre. And that's what readers expect. And if you want to please readers, which most people who write books want their readers to like their books.
yes,
So
yes,
if you
of
want your readers to be happy, you're going to want to give them what they expect and more, because they have a certain expectation, and you need to at least meet that expectation. Um, and if not, then they're going to feel like there's something missing.
Absolutely, I agree. And
Yeah.
this is so interesting. When I first published my book, I didn't really, I did care of the reader, but it was more for me as a healing process. But the last one we did, it was for the reader, like 2000% for the reader. So it
Yeah.
was really a process. Like, so I'm trying to put all that together for other women to write,
Uh-huh.
and it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot the same thing. It's kind of funny. The first version of my book was um really, I think, just for me, just to get it all out. Second version, well, the first version, I got some, let's say, some critical comments from readers. and and instead of letting it bother me, I which I did, I have to admit, I let it bother me at first. And then somebody said, don't do that. You pay attention to the critical reviews and see if there's anything valuable in it. And so I
Absolutely.
did. I went back and looked at them, and a couple of them actually, I had to grudgingly admit that they had a point. so,
Okay.
so that was one of the main reasons I went back and rewrote my book. And my book, that first rewrite, I ended up taking 10,000 words out of the book, because part of the one of the complaints that really stuck with me was that my book sounded like he this is what I pictured in my mind from what he said, is sitting next to an old lady at a dinner party where you can't get away, and all she does is talk about herself
Oh my
past in her
goodness.
childhood. So I don't want to sound like that. I don't want to come across that way. So
Wow.
that's where the
Wow.
10,000 words, why it went from 65 down to 55.
I remember, wow, this is so amazing. I think the fact that we learn to delete part of our book is also a process as a writer. I
Yeah.
remember the first time my editor, mentor, friend in Israel, he told me to delete something or just
Uh-huh.
cut it out of the book. I was crying so
Uh-huh.
bad. I'm like,
Yes.
you crazy.
Mhm.
I wrote that for hours. I cried. I'm so, and actually the title of my book is You Are Loud, and it was one chapter in my book, but we take it out.
Mhm.
And I don't know how we come back to the You Are Loud as a title,
Uh-huh.
but few years later, so it was like, you're allowed just 1 minute. I know that. I know that. Oh, yeah, it was a chapter. But what he told me, and I would love to share, is that actually, even if you delete or cut out a part of your book, I say cut out because with that chapter, I can write another book.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I never delete. I'm like, maybe another book. Anyway, when you cut or delete, if you want to delete, the book already it already impacted your book, your manuscript. It already impacted you, even so you take it out. So it's so
Yeah.
magical. And at first I didn't understand. I'm like, oh no. But now I'm like, okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
understand.
I heard some early in my writing career, I got some advice from someone, just generic advice. And it has always stuck with me because it was such an extreme example. They said you have to be willing to kill your children. And
Absolutely.
by that, he meant kill your favorite sentences, your favorite
Absolutely.
words, your favorite things, if they do not contribute to your book and they
Absolutely.
don't move it forward, if they aren't adding anything of benefit, no matter how much you love that sentence that you wrote, get rid of it. So kill your children. You have to be willing to do that. I mean, as a writer, you have to be willing to give that kind of thing up. And I had to do that too between my first book and my second book. And my third book was really more of a labor of love because I realized that I had not given the reader a good enough picture of my transformation as a Christian, starting out how I was when I started out, and just kind of a mediocre, I was born in the church kind of person, and how I grew and how I ended up depending on God through all of the traumatic events that I had to go through. And then I wanted people to see that growth. So I rewrote my book the third time with that purpose in mind because it's important when you have a memoir, and I never really thought about this that much the first couple of times, but you need to have a theme and a unifying theme in your memoir. And I realized I had not presented that unifying theme in a clear enough way that the reader would be able to get it. So the third one I was proud of because I got that information across.
Oh my goodness. Everything you are saying, I want to say wow, 2000 stuff, interesting stuff. So good. So good. So, wow. So I wrote a memoir and now I'm going to a children book,
Uh-huh.
and I have another book, but now I need to talk with you about that in another call because I'm so excited.
Okay.
but but wow, I did a memoir and I absolutely agree with the fact that we need to read more when we
Mhm.
are writing. I think more specifically maybe memoir, like when I'm writing a children book, I'm going to the library and actually reading children book, and I enjoy
Yes.
that so much. This is
Right.
so good. um but I didn't do a memoir like people said you should have done, because I changed a lot of rules in the memoir writing. I decided to I don't really like to follow rules in the writing, so
Uh-huh.
I just did whatever, and it's more of romance or whatever you call that, but I love to play with all that together. It's
Uh-huh.
super interesting. But of course, yes, we need at the end of the day before we publish, we need to remember the reader and what the reader want and why we did all that for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I did that at the end of the day. I'm like, okay, yes, and I have a lot of people are reaching out about this and that. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. But it takes time to understand and to say, okay, yes, I understand as a writer, you know. I don't
Right.
know, for me, it was super hard the first time someone say something not super nice about my book. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yes. It's like you're attacking my child,
yes,
my
yes,
baby.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yes, yes. But
Yeah.
now I'm like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, if it's valid, I'll pay attention. If it's not, I just don't care.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is great. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
It's a
and
good
you can get some one of the things to realize on Amazon is that I have, for example, I have something like 4 1-star reviews. I mean, not reviews, 4 1-star ratings, maybe 4 2-star ratings, maybe 12 3-star ratings. But as far as reviews in the 1, 2, and 3 star, there's only one. There's a 1 3-star review. There's a difference between ratings and reviews. A rating is when you just go on and you give it a certain number of stars. You don't leave your name, you don't leave a review, you don't leave any identifying characteristics. You just go in, and if you are, and I don't know why people do this. Why would somebody go in and just give your book 1 star and then not explain why they did that? Well, I think unless they didn't read it, and maybe they
Absolutely.
don't like me. I mean, maybe they're jealous. Maybe they don't like people named Susan. Who knows why? But
Yeah.
that will drag down your rating in Amazon. For example, right now my book is rated at 4.4, but I have, like probably 80% of my reviews are 5-star reviews. But
Wow.
those lower ones, those lower star ratings will drag it down, but don't worry about it. So I'm telling you now, don't worry about it. It happens to everybody. And when you get your first 1-star rating with no reviews attached to it, then you will have arrived. You are
I
officially a published author.
I have one. I have one. I have one who did
There you
that,
go.
but they give me a 5 star. So I'm like, okay, whatever.
Well,
If it's
that's,
a
yeah,
5 star, I don't
it's those
care.
it's those 1-star reviews with no, I mean, 1-star ratings with no reviews that you can lose sleep over if you let yourself, but you can't do anything about it. And Amazon isn't going to do anything about it. They let people do that. They let people put, I don't think they should. I think they should require there to be a review. If you're going to give a star rating, I think you should have to explain why. I don't think it should be legal, let's say
Or
part of the
maybe,
rules.
maybe if it's a 1 or a 2, they need to give an explanation. And if it's a 3 or 4 or 5, they don't need to. I love
Yeah,
that.
right.
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay,
But
perfect. Sounds good.
it's just, again, it's that kind of stuff that you don't know when you're getting into this business. You don't realize it, and it can hit you right between the eyes if you aren't aware of it. So I like people to know about it ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are some other things that I think people should know, authors in particular should know, in some decisions they need to be thinking about before they publish their book. Now, if you're going to self-publish, um, there are a lot of things you need to know that you may not know, and you may not know that you don't know. So um, I would be very happy to help anybody out if they need to understand what some of these things are. And because it can get very complicated. And so here's some other things you might want to think about. Some things that you'll need to know what they are. You need to know what trim size is. If you don't know what trim size is, that's like the size of your book. Like a paperback is typically a 6 by 9. That's 6 inches by 9 inches trim size. A children's book, if it's a square children's book, it's usually something like 8.5 by 8.5 inches. You can make books a little larger than that, even a little bit smaller. Amazon is very specific, though. They have a chart in the help section of KDP that can give you all of the lists of their requirements. They have a certain number of minimum pages that you need to have in order for it to fit into a certain category. So that's something that you're going to need to study that before you make any final decisions on when you're doing formatting, because you need to know what the trim size is. That's really important. You need to know
Yeah,
what,
it's really
yeah.
important. And I saw that, and I think I will just let my editor and publisher do that. I'm like, you're
Uh-huh.
good, let's go.
Yeah, yes, it is much easier just to turn it over to someone who knows about it. And things you need to know things like what's full bleed or what's no bleed, especially if you're doing a book in color. Um, whether that means the full bleed means that the color goes all the way to the edge of the page. And
Oh, wow.
no bleed means there's a white margin around the edges.
Oh, wow.
So that's something you need to be thinking about. And if you've got a book that is got any kind of uh, graphics, let's say, that go to the
But
edge.
this is for children book, right?
Usually it's for children's books,
So
but
what is mine?
yeah,
Susan.
some other books. Sometimes people will, in a memoir, maybe want to have photographs or illustrations in those books, and so you need to think about whether you want a margin around that or not.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so that's one thing you need to think about. If you're going to be publishing the book yourself, you need to be thinking about ISBNs. So research it. I won't explain it here. It's just that's one of those things you would need to learn. Um, the various formats, I already talked about those things. The and like I said, think about illustrations in your memoir. I'm doing a memoir right now for someone doing the formatting, and it's turning out really, really great. And she's got photographs that are we're including in probably about a third of the chapters, and
Wow.
it's just looking really nice. It's coming out really great.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah, because it just brings it alive. So
Yes.
I kind of recommend, if you can, put illustrations in your book. Um, Another thing, when you're writing a memoir, and I don't know if anybody's ever really talked too much about this or not, but you need to be somewhat cautious about what you say about certain people. I
Oh
mean,
my goodness. I
you don't
just
want to be sued. You don't want to be sued
thank
for
you.
slander. Yeah.
So I have one person who has a question about that for you,
Uh-huh.
because I get some question before by email, and
Uh-huh.
so here we are. So the question is from Teresa, and she was asking if she can use name of medicine because her husband Brad, who passed, the late husband, he was using a specific medicine,
Uh-huh.
and she wants to know if she can use the actual real name of the medicine for cancer treatment.
As far as I know, unless it happens to be a treatment that is not, um, what am I trying to say? Not out there in the public. If it's like an experimental drug, something that could be protected by a patent that has not maybe yet completely cleared the patent office, then I think that she'd have to be careful about that. But I think any drug that's already out there in the market, and if you've got something negative to say about the drug, from your own personal experience, that's your experience. They can't sue you for slandering them if you can show was my experience. because that was a situation in my book, was there was a particular drug that gave me a bad side effect. And so I talked about it. It's not a problem. I mean, it actually is a known side effect of the drug. So, you do have to be somewhat careful, but you need to know where that drug is in the marketplace, whether it's been, released for general sale in the marketplace. But there is a website called creativelaw.com, and I belong to her group. She's a lawyer who advises authors and actors and actresses and screenwriters and creative people, artists,
Wow.
on legal aspects. And she gives classes like once a month on some different aspect of the law. Um,
Wow.
so it's really interesting. And by having a membership, I can also ask her questions. So
Wow.
it's just a website that uh, I think it's really great. And the
Yes.
membership is pretty reasonably priced when you think about the cost of legal
Yeah, of
advice.
course. I know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Thank you. So
yeah,
I did explain about names and everything, but about specifically about the medicine, I didn't know what
yeah,
because
yeah.
here in USA it's different. So thank you. Wow, so many stuff to think about, huh?
And you hear some more stuff if that didn't boggle your mind yet.
Oh
Uh,
no, no, yeah. Go.
copyrights,
Yeah.
copyrights. So talk about copyrights. Did you know fonts are copyrighted?
No.
Fonts. So
No way.
if you use a font in your commercial publication, your book for sale, and it is one that is copyrighted, and you had to have purchased the font with the purposes of, using it in that way, then if you don't do that and you don't buy the font and register for it, then
Oh my
you can
goodness.
be sued for copyright infringement with a
Oh my
font.
goodness.
And a lot of people don't realize that fonts are copyrighted often, very often, especially some of the more unusual ones, the ones that you run across when you just go out there looking for fonts on the internet. A lot of times they'll say free fonts. Great, it's a free font. I'm going to use it. Well, it's free if you're only going to use it for personal use. Like if you're going to put it in, a picture that you're creating for yourself or your family. But if you're going to publish it and then sell
It's
something with that
different.
font printed in it, you better check on the laws for that one.
Yeah, I had the same problem once because with Canva, I did a cover,
Yes,
and it's the same for Canva. You can, even
yes,
if you are paying $1 or whatever,
right.
uh, you cannot use that actually for publishing and selling because they have copyright, and
That's
people
right.
don't know that. And I'm like, no, thank you. I think I will
Yeah.
just go to do it with actual someone else who is, to
Mhm.
have the right. So yeah.
That's
Um,
absolutely right. Yeah, that was where my one author found a font she just fell in love with, and she wanted me to use it. And when I went to go search for it, I realized that it required a $35 a license fee to use it in her book. And she was like shocked. She says, "Well, it's on Canva." And I said, "Well, I don't care. It can't be used in your book."
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Okay,
yeah.
Susan, I need to send you my book to make sure I don't. Uh,
Yeah,
oh
so
my
that's why the
goodness.
formatting is something people need to think a lot more about than they typically do. But that's all
Yes.
part of the formatting in your book. And more copyright issues. If you are, let's say, you're quoting a Bible verse, there are Bible versions that are copyrighted that you need permission.
What?
Yes, that you need to understand what the copyright laws and rules are for the specific versions, like New International Version, English Standard Version, King James Version. New American Standard, all of those different versions, like New International Version, the copyright for that is owned by Zondervan. I mean, you don't think about that. You think it's a Bible, but no, you
Book,
if you
yeah.
quote
It's a
New
Bible
Inter,
book.
right, you need to understand how much of the Bible, how much of it you can quote in your book, um,
I,
and
I
when you
did
need to get
quote.
permission.
Oh wow, I did quote in one of my books actually. Oh wow.
Yeah. And but what I do, here's my trick for you. If you are going to be using a Bible verse, stick with one of two versions, either King James, which is in the public domain because it's so old, or the Berean Standard Bible, which is a version that's modern, but the people who are behind the version, who created it, wanted it to be in the public domain. So it's in the public domain, not copyrighted. So those two versions, I think, if you stick with those two, you're going to be fine. It's when you get into some of the others, ESV, NIV, New American Standard, those other ones they all have copyrights.
Oh
Um,
wow.
doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means you have to be careful and understand what their rule is, what
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
set up.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
know that. Oh, wow, it's so interesting. So when I was writing my book, I was writing in Hebrew,
Uh-huh.
and I quoted a song, one sentence of a song in Israel, and
Uh-huh.
so I paid for that sentence. I
Yeah.
paid. Yeah,
Yeah.
I paid, and my publisher back in Israel, I told her, I don't mind, I need to pay. I'm going to pay because it was a super famous singer and a
Uh-huh.
super famous song.
Yeah.
So we did that. Now, with the translation in English, we didn't because in English, no one knows that song. And, like,
Yeah.
so we didn't
Yeah.
in English, but in
Yeah.
Hebrew, yes. So,
But yeah,
wow.
you're right. Song lyrics as well. You can quote a song title, but the lyrics you can't quote the lyrics unless you get permission. And like you said, oftentimes they'll ask you to pay for that. I checked into that because I wanted to do that in my memoir. I had some song lyrics that I had wanted to put in there, and I checked into it, and I was going to pay for it, but in the end, I decided not to, and I ended up actually writing poems instead. So,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
yeah, I think it turned out even better. So, there's are interesting advantages to, well, to checking in, to check everything. Think about all of the different possibilities, things that could go wrong, and do some research. Don't just assume everything is hunky dory and fine and move forward without thinking about it. I highly recommend researching some things and doing a lot of reading, especially if you're going to be self-publishing. If you've got a publisher, then the publisher is going to take care of that. But if you're publishing it yourself, you can leave yourself wide open to a lot of issues that can be a problem for you someday. And so, those are just some things to watch out for. And then copywriting your own work. As far as people ask me about this a lot, copywriting, when you first write something, as soon as you write it, it's copyrighted because it's yours. You created it. So it's covered. Now, if someone actually goes out and takes what you wrote and then they use it and you want to sue them for copyright infringement, you have to show where what you wrote preceded what they wrote. The best way to do that is to actually get your book copyrighted with the Copyright Office in Washington, D.C. You can do that. It's really easy to do. Um,
Oh, wow.
but
I
you
want to
don't
do
need
that.
to. It is copyrighted. It's not as easy if you want to, if you think you're going to. Now, in my case, I didn't really care. I don't care if my book is out there somewhere. In other words, I have looked for my books. If you go online and you search for the title of my book and you put it in Google, there will be pages and pages and pages of entries of that
Wow.
come up. with my book, and some of them are at bookstores that are located in foreign countries, and I certainly didn't have anything to do with getting them placed there.
Wow.
So, I don't know how they got there personally, if they've taken my ebook and they have copied it over and they're now using it. I don't care. I just really wanted my book to get out there. I'm not as concerned about, getting every single penny of the royalties as I am about people reading it and getting some benefit from it.
I understand.
That not everybody's like that. I mean, not everybody feels that way about what they've written. And
Can you send us the link to
the
do that?
copyright office.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that after we get off
Okay.
the call.
I will share that with all the members. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's super
yeah,
interesting actually.
yeah, yeah. So, more questions? Got any more?
Oh wow, it's so much stuff to read. Yeah, I think it's really amazing because actually, when we are writing a book, specifically for me and the people I'm working with, it's just about, of course, I'm talking about all the publishing, editing, and everything, and that's why we are here.
Uh-huh.
But it's mostly the first, I have two phases. The first one is more about just doing it, writing, starting the writing, and more
Yep.
about just getting out. And then we come into that process of publishing.
Hmm.
It's so much to remember and to know and to understand. But I think it was great because now we have everything clarified pretty much. And
Oh, no, no, actually, there's so much more.
I know. You want to share more? No,
No,
no.
I mean, there's more than, I could go on for a day, a whole
I
day.
know. I'm sure you can go for a day. What else you want to share?
Well, I do want to say that when you're especially writing a memoir, um, you want to work with the people that are in your book. For example, I wrote about some people that I hadn't actually talked to in many years, but I wanted to make sure that what I had written was accurate and that they did not object to being in my book. Just out of courtesy. And also, if you say something slanderous, people can sue you too for that. So it's I think very really important to do that with everybody who appears in your book. Um, unless it's your ex-husband and you haven't talked to them for 8,000 years. And it might be a little weird, but um,
Uh,
you know,
Actually, I did wrote a book about my ex-husband, but I'm not going to publish until next year.
well,
And
my ex-husband appeared in my book too, and I didn't contact him, and I just to
okay,
you know, I didn't because I what I wrote was my viewpoint of our marriage and how I saw it, and I felt like I could, defend what I said. Um, it certainly couldn't have been disproven, and wasn't. I didn't say anything that was really awful that it wasn't that bad. In other words, it was just something, different things that I suppose people might not want to have talked about them, but nothing personal, nothing really serious. But if you do have a book that does have those kinds of things in it, and you are naming names, well, for one thing, I also changed the name. I changed his name. So it's not the same name in my book as his real name.
me too.
Yeah. And I changed the names even of my kids in the book, just to
Mm.
kind of help protect their privacy. But I let them read the book before I published it. I let everyone else who I talked about in the book read the book before I published it. So I think that's a good practice,
Okay,
just to be on the safe side, to let people read it. You don't want to have somebody come and create a terrible drama in your family because you published something and they didn't know.
okay,
Yeah.
good. And it's important because all the members here are doing memoir. They are
Mhm.
writing memoir, so it's
Yeah.
really an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I in my memoir I did change the name of the people, and I didn't ask for any one of them. But I totally understand. And all the people I wrote about, they are in France or in Israel, so it's
Yeah.
totally different.
Yeah.
Um, to tell the truth, I'm a little bit worried about my ex-husband because the book is really, really, really. It's not nice. So I was wondering about that
Uh-huh.
because I'm like, maybe I would say it's not a memoir, it's just romance or whatever you, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But the
Yeah.
problem is when you change the name, but you describe him so
Yeah.
clearly. So you
Yeah.
say, no, it's not you, but it's not your name,
Yeah,
but
it's
you
not your name,
describe.
but it's still, you were married so that you could, anybody could figure it out. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, anyway,
Anyway,
water
yeah.
under the bridge.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, but
we will see.
it's kind of good advice to just always keep that in your mind when you're writing about
Yes,
people.
yes, yes. Absolutely, absolutely. I agree, totally agree. Yes, absolutely. And I think you said that earlier, and I always say that too. We are writing to heal, and we are writing to give another point of view. We are writing to help people and to give hope, and we are not here to critic. How do you say that? To talk about other people and say they are not okay, blah blah blah. I'm like, I always say to my writers, the writer working with me, I'm guiding them, they are
Uh,
writing, but I always say we are not here to create more drama or. So absolutely, I totally agree
right,
with that. Yeah,
right.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also put kind of a disclaimer in my book that, you know, to not judge the early me and assume that that's who I am now. To understand that there was growth. I had growth throughout my years, and that the things that I did earlier, I'm not proud of. I put that kind of information in there so that people would realize that, if you only read the first, few chapters of the book, don't stop there and just assume that's the way I am now. Because
You
I've
know what? This is so amazing. This is so, 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 so amazing what you just said. And I think I didn't do that for my book, but I think that's what I needed and I didn't. And
Mhm,
it's actually the missing piece because it reconnect me with how we started about Christianity and Jesus, and I think that for me this is a missing piece, and
uh-huh,
I'm like,
mhm.
wow,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah, I'll send you
because
the
yes,
introductory note that I put in my book, just so you
yes,
can see what it looks like,
yeah,
what it is, because that was one of the very last things I put into my book, but that to me was one of the most important things I added.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, wow. So much stuff I need to talk with you about. And I hope all the member of Let's Talk About Writing, how to write and publish a book. If you want to reach out to Susan, I will share her email and website and everything, and you are more than welcome that ask question. And wow, thank you, thank you, thank you, this is
Mhm.
so amazing, and I need to do a list what to talk with Susan about.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed talking. This is one of my favorite subjects.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. I was a dog trainer. I hate to bring up the being a dog trainer so quickly to being a publisher, but I was a dog trainer, and my favorite part of dog training was to train the owners who had their very first dog. And so, kind of start them out in the beginning from on the right foot, so they don't have to unlearn a lot of things that they made mistakes on with previous dogs. Is their
Oh,
first dog, they want to learn it right, and
oh
those
wow.
were my favorite clients. And I feel the same way with authors, especially first time authors. I want to try to inject all of the information that they're going to need in their brains so, so that they don't make the same mistakes that I did or the same mistakes other people made.
I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. And actually, you know what? It's so amazing to find the right person because, oh my goodness, you are wasting time, energy, and money. And it's so important to find, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I spent so much time. And you know, my editor, the last time we did the book in May, it wasn't just in May, we finished in May, but before that, we worked for a lot of time. And I actually really relate to what you just said because I was listening to the reader and what they said in the past with the first and second version. So it was just for them. I'm like, okay, yes, I want to be here for my reader. And
Uh-huh.
they say this and they say that. So we did work on the book, but my editor says something really amazing. She said, "You are not the same writer right now. We are not the same person because she was like, we are not rewriting the book like you know to write today, 10 years
Uh-huh.
later. We are
Yeah.
just listening to the readers."
Yeah.
And so it was a super annoying, amazing thing. It was so annoying and so amazing at the same time
Yeah.
because I want to listen to the reader and do it better. My book
Uh-huh.
is the quality and everything much better, but I didn't do it like I know today.
Yes.
And
Right.
so it's so interesting, and I would love, 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 love to have um to see what you put in your book. Like I'm not proud of what I did, but now I'm a different person, and I
Yes.
actually sharing my story not to tell you do that, but
Uh-huh.
I was here and now I'm here, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um,
I'll send it to you so you can see what I wrote.
yeah, wow. This I need to read your book anyway, so
Yeah.
but mine is not a Christian book, so
Yeah.
I don't so yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, it's amazing. Oh wow, Susan, Susan, Susan. Can I
Well,
kidnap you for a few days?
well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for all the member. Let's talk about writing. I will see you. As a member, we will be here together on Tuesday, October 1st. I'm super excited. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
I will stop the recording.